to the Thursday edition of Facebook Live with Ask Dr. Callahan. I am Cassidy Cash, and I am so glad to be talking with you today. I have a fun interview set up. This is my husband, Tim Cash, and he has so graciously agreed to tell us about this fun thing that happened at work this last week. He was telling me about this formula he was putting together, and I went, oh my gosh, that's algebra. You have to tell my students. And so he's agreed to come on today to tell you guys all about it. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming today. So I know you a lot, but the people watching may not. I don't think I've actually had you on Facebook Live before. So could you take a minute and tell them kind of who you are and what you do?
Okay. Yeah, it's Tim Cash. I run a lawn care and landscape company. So we do everything from cutting grass to installing irrigation systems. And I kind of hold many hats, whether it's customer relations or doing accounts receivable or HR. I kind of fill all that. So.
Yeah. So that's why it was really very fun to have this conversation with you specifically, because I know that over the summer, especially, high school students will come in and work there with you, and you just don't think of lawn care as being a place where it's really important that you understand algebra. You know, people think, you cut the grass, you don't need to know math. And so you found out this last week that actually that's not true. Is that right?
That is not true. Yes, that was a lot. And we think about it on some of the more, like when you're doing chemicals or doing lawn applications, you think, okay, that's using math because I have to use ratios and things like that. Or measuring things, square footage, but even with just the cutting grass, taking the mower out and mowing, we use a lot of math. So.
That's awesome. Well, okay, tell me about, now I know we had an equation, and I wrote it down so I could show it to people, but you had a man-hour equation, which just to tell people the difference between man hours and hours that you work. There was a little bit of a detail there, a technicality between the two, right? Yeah,
so when you're, I guess, working or like in my case, running a business that is service-based, it's time-based. We go and we cut grass, and it takes time to do that, okay? You have what we bill by man-hour. What that is that's the number of people who are on the job multiplied by the time that they're there. So if I have 2 people at a property for 1 hour, it's actually 2 man hours because I paid 2 people to be there for an hour. So that job, even though they were only there from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock in the morning, it's actually a 2 man hour job.
Okay, awesome. So that was one difference. And you were explaining this to the people that were coming on. They were new, and you're explaining them about how they were going to get paid for the work they were doing. And I know you showed me this equation, which is man hours times 20% equals the total number of hours that an individual working for you would get paid. Did I write this down correctly?
Yeah, that looks right.
Okay.
And where that comes from is a couple years ago, we decided that we wanted to find a way to reward people for working faster, for working better, more effectively. And so by putting together this formula, it put us both on the same side. If somebody works faster, they're paid more. And how the formula works is that each job is assigned a man-hour rating. How long it should take one person to do this job, okay? So what we do is if I have a property and one person's working by themselves, and they have a house that it should take them 1 hour to cut it. That's a 1 man hour job, right? Right. And I have them as they have an hourly rate that they're paid, just like any other job. So we'll keep the math simple and say it's $10 an hour. Okay.
Right.
So reasonably, they're going to get paid $10 for that job. All right.
Right.
But they've got to drive there and stuff like that, and I want to pay them for that time. So I allow an additional 20% for them to get to the job and get ready. So actually what they're getting is the 1 hour of production plus 20% travel. So that job is worth $12 to them. Okay.
Right. So they get paid more than, if you get hired at the job for $10 an hour, you get paid $12 for the way that you're calculating this.
Yeah,
So I want to take just a second and remind people that they can ask you questions. I know this is a new format for how we've been doing Facebook Live in the past, and I love this little tool because unlike the ones I did last week or even the week before, right down below this video, right down there, you can comment, and the way I'm set up here, I can see those, and so can Tim. So if you have any questions about how this works, or if you want to see the equation more in detail, or you just have questions about how someone who runs a lawn care company uses algebra in their business, while we're talking through this equation, go ahead and put your questions down there in the chat, and we'll be able to see those. And for high school students, this equation he's talking about is called a direct variation equation. When you look in your algebra textbook, there is an entire lesson called direct variation equations, and that's what you're using here. Now, you're not going to call it direct variation equation when you go and work for somebody like Tim, but you will be using it when you calculate how much you make. Because now, Tim, tell me if I have this right, but the equation for how much they would make is when they get hired, they have an agreed upon pay rate, and they multiply that by their total hours paid, which is what we calculated with the first equation, right? That you take the man hours times 20%, and then that number, which is more than the hours they actually were working, that number times their pay rate is what they get paid. Is that right?
That's what they get paid. And with that, as far as the first equation, it's just figuring out what the value is. So one man hour plus the travel time, that's the value of that property. Now, unlike being paid at an hourly rate, if it takes them 45 minutes to do the property, then I'm still paying them the $12, even though it only took them 45 minutes to do it. So then by using this equation, they can figure out how much they're going to make.
And really be kind of in control of how much they make, too.
And you can also do the opposite of the equation of going, hey, I want to walk away with $150 a day. What do I need to do that? And so you can work the equation both ways to set your own goals.
That's exciting. Well, okay, so the other thing we talked about is that, the difference between $10 and $12 doesn't sound very much, but for any high schoolers that are considering whether or not algebra is going to have a big impact for them in the long term, when you calculated this up for some of the people working for you, how much of an annual difference did this make to their bottom line by understanding this one direct variation equation?
We were looking at actually like $5,000 a year difference is what this was looking for some of the crew members. I mean, because you put that together, a normal year, if you're working a full-time job,
right,
2,000 plus hours for the year. Okay, it's typically what most people work, about 2,000 hours a year. That's a 40-hour week. So if we're talking even just $1 of difference, that's $2,000 for the year.
Wow.
If you can increase your efficiency by 20%, then you can get, then you're talking, $4,000 a year that you can reasonably be making, taking home with you.
That's fantastic. Now, we've got some of the other staff members from Ask Dr. Callahan watching this video with us today, and they pointed out that direct variation is covered in Chapter 2 of Jacob's Algebra 1. So for all of our students out there watching that, if you're wondering where that is in the textbook, or if you thought maybe Miss Cassidy was just making it up, you can go and look in Chapter 2 of Jacob's Algebra 1, and that's where you cover this exact kind of equation that Tim's telling us about today. Thank you so much, my fellow team members, for sending that in. That is just, I don't know, to me that was really exciting difference between just understanding that one math equation, which isn't even a complicated math equation. I know a lot of times when I am teaching and I try to connect real world math for students, you know, whether it's rockets or something like that, you end up having to go into trig and calculus to find the meat of the math. But this stuff is 9th grade math, Algebra 1, it's just straight algebra, and it has such a direct impact on somebody that's working in the very real world that you work in. So I thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Oh, I meant to ask you, this comes from a book, doesn't it? This concept, this equation and the difference between man hours and working hourly.
It's a variation of an equation that came from work. There was a I guess we looked at the idea kind of more in depth after reading a book called Piecework. I don't remember who the author of that is.
Okay. Well, we'll look up the book for you guys that might be interested. Send me a message on Facebook and we'll get that out to you guys. But Tim, Cash, thank you so much for being here today and talking with us about this concept. I know I'm excited to see math used in the real world, and I hope some of our students that are watching today see how valuable Algebra 1 can be. Don't lose faith. You're sitting in chapter 2 and you think direct variation just has no purpose. Hopefully today shows you that it does in a very real, tangible way for you. Hope you guys have a great Thursday, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Bye, Tim.
Bye. Thank you.